Serious Survivor here. Today I want to talk about what would happen, things or steps we need to take to prepare for this event that may become a quarantine or lockdown type of event. But what I want to focus on today and talk about today is not just the virus itself. We've all read enough about the virus. We all know what the virus does. We all know what its symptoms are. We know what it's capable of. But I want to talk about the effects that are going to spill over into our everyday lives. If we look at China right now, there are hundreds of millions of people that are actually quarantined, people that are forced to stay in their homes. And this is the situation that really is going to cause the most long-term problems from this virus, because I do believe at some point in time they will develop a cure or vaccine, but the economic impacts of it, the damage done to infrastructure and our just civil society may be beyond repairable in some countries, some parts of the world. So let's look at what would happen if this does get worse. So as we look at the spread of this virus, it's increasing daily. The R0 factor, which is the spreadability or reproductivity of the virus, is said to be about 2.5 right now, which means that for everyone that has it, they have the possibility of infecting 2.5 more people. The problem with this is that it doesn't always show right away. When someone contracts the virus, they can carry it for several days up to a couple of weeks before they actually develop symptoms. And during that time, the virus is still contagious. So this could really be a much higher R0 factor than what we're seeing of 2.5. And this is quite concerning because as of this morning, or yesterday I should say, there's already one death in the US, and one death doesn't sound like much, but that's one too many, of course. But this does go to show that this virus is not under control as some of the news outlets, as some of the politicians may say so. Now, this is not a political video, and I will not get into politics on this, but I am getting tired of turning on the news and seeing this virus being politicized by both sides. One of the major concerns as this begins to spread, we look across the U.S. right now and we see so much information that seems to contradict itself. But some of the common information that I've been reading is California, there's a lot of people that are under observation or basically self-quarantine, the same as in Seattle and a couple other states. 2 weeks ago, this wasn't the case. So we're seeing this disease or this virus rise. We're seeing it rise daily. We're seeing it spread to more and more countries daily. And the time at which I'm making this video, it's affecting 65 countries so far. 2 weeks ago, it was half of that. So what will it be 2 weeks from now? And this is the concern. It's not so much the virus, because a lot of people are recovering from the virus, but it's the economic impact and the civil impact that we've really got to worry about. And I believe that will be much worse than the virus itself. I don't see supply chains being interrupted right now, although there are some factors to it. Actually, my son has lost his job because their warehouse stopped receiving imports from China. So he was laid off. Hopefully that's just temporary. But, who knows? This is happening to more and more people across the U.S. But the thing is this, it's not just China that we import from and export to, it's other nations in the world. And as travel becomes more and more restricted, then we're going to see what we already see, and that's the beginning of price gouging. We can see that online now simply with just the N95 mask that everyone wants right now. But the fact is, as this continues to spread, and it's going to spread, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. I think everyone is opening their eyes to that right now. But we're going to start seeing quarantines, not just in 2 or 3 states, but throughout the entire nation. We're going to start seeing travel being restricted. And possibly, if it continues to grow at this rate, we're going to see a total disruption in the supply chain, and we're going to become totally dependent on the government providing what we need to survive on a daily basis. And that's what bothers me the most. So thinking about that type of situation, then it's pretty obvious for some of the supplies that we must have. We need to have a minimum, people are saying a minimum of 30 days. I believe it could last longer than that. I would say 90 days minimum. And I know that that can be expensive, and that sounds like a lot, but there are avenues out there we can use. I use Dollar Tree, Dollar General to get some of my canned goods, Walmart to get some of my canned goods, and Sam's Wholesale to get a lot of the others. We also need to consider not just the food aspect of it. Make sure that the food you purchase is actually going to be food that people will eat, that you will eat, and that has the proper nutrients if you can. So have a mixture of different food types. And there's so many videos out there that show us the long-term storage foods, but we're not looking at having to store this food for 25 years here. we're looking at having to keep this food and keep ourselves alive for the next 3 to 6 months. So I don't think longevity of any of these food types is really going to be an issue except for frozen foods. So the need for freeze-dried foods, huge buckets of it and all that, yeah, get them if you can. But the most important part is just to have enough food on hand for you and every member of your household for the next 3 to 6 months. I don't believe that during a quarantine type of event or even a lockdown and martial law that the government would interrupt water supplies or power supplies. So I do think everyone would be good on that, at least in the beginning, depending on how far this virus progresses. I know that I use natural gas for my heating and also for my cooking here. I don't expect that to be interrupted either, at least not in the first, few months or a few weeks of a lockdown or martial law type of event. So I think utility-wise, we would be okay. The problem is this, and this is what I have been thinking a lot about, and if I truly am in a lockdown situation or a martial law situation, and we're probably not going to be working if it gets that serious, so where am I going to get my money from to pay these bills? And that is what's concerning. That's what I'm attempting to do is I'm using every penny I have to pay my bills up for the next 2 to 3 months. I'm trying to get 2 to 3 months ahead, and also keeping cash on hand. Because if this were to get very, very serious, and if we were to lose power, well, if we lose power, the grid is down basically, and that's when the money you have in the bank is completely useless. So I'm a firm believer in having cash or valuables on hand that you can trade and make purchases with. Because no matter what, a lot of people say, well, cash will be worthless, gold and silver will be worthless. Well, just take a look around. Look at the greed of human beings right now. People will still accept some form of currency as trade. That will always happen. Unless this is a world-ending event to where no one ever recovers, then there's no way we could say that precious metals would not retain their value. Thousands of years of civilization have proved that to be true. And I do believe that's one of the most important preps that we can keep for a situation like this, because this isn't like a nuclear war, an asteroid impact, or Yellowstone erupting, or things like that just totally devastate the entire world. People are going to still be in their homes for this. Some stores will still be open. The government will still be there. So we're going to have some form of currency and trade. I fully expect that I'm not going to be able to work. So I have to have these types of preps on hand. Otherwise, I truly will be in a lot of trouble financially when the situation does pass. As far as medical supplies go, there are a lot of medical supplies out there. There are a lot of medicines, I should say, out there that work really good on flu and severe cold type of symptoms. But everybody's different. You know what medicines you can take. I don't. And I can take certain types of medicines, but some I cannot. So that's going to be true for everyone. So research that for yourself and just use your best judgment. You know that you're going to need some of this, so stock up now if you have the chance. Another factor that concerns me is if we are in a lockdown state, if people are not allowed to travel from city to city, then as the supplies of those who are unprepared begin to dwindle, then I do expect to see a lot of civil unrest. I do expect to see a lot of rioting as soon as the martial law, I'd say about 72 hours into the martial law, people who don't have any supplies, they're going to take to the streets to start fighting for supplies. And, I don't want to say it's understandable, but it's expectable. If someone's hungry, they're going to go in search of food. If someone's thirsty, they're going to go in search of water. They're not just going to lay there and die. So civil unrest and crime would definitely be on the rise, because even though we have a strong, powerful military, if they were to move in a martial law type of scenario, there's not enough of them to control the entire population of the United States. There's 350 million people in the U.S., and if I'm not mistaken, we have about 1 million in all of our military branches combined. So that's one soldier for every 350 people. It's going to be very difficult to keep the peace in these types of situations. And it's very concerning because we hear so many different stories. We'll hear politicians that say that this is the end of the world, basically. We hear others that say it's going to blow over. We hear the CDC saying prepare for a pandemic, and they're telling us to. So I have to take that middle ground there with the CDC on this. And don't get me wrong, I'm not defending them or justifying anything they've done. I'm just saying what they say right now does make true sense. We need to be prepared for this. And it's not just the disease, but worry about the preparations, the supplies you're going to need to keep yourself and your family safe, fed, and healthy if an isolation does occur. And this is our 60 to 90 days of food. This is our 60 to 90 days of water and water purification methods. This is the medical supplies that you can get your hands on. And let's not forget hygiene supplies, things like that. Toothbrushes, a lot of toothpaste on hand, a lot of soap, toilet paper, and then cleaning supplies are also going to be a very important aspect because you're going to want to keep your home clean as possible. During the initial stages like we're in now, it's probably not necessary to wear a mask around all the time, at least not here in the United States. But when it comes to that point, I'm opting out of the N95s and I'm going with one of my military gas masks. People might look at me funny, but you know what? I'll be a lot safer that way. And I do highly recommend purchasing a gas mask over these N95s that are way jacked up in price right now. And you can find a gas mask pretty reasonable on eBay. You don't need a $700 one, just a $30 CBRN NBC rated mask will do. But going back to one thing I talked about earlier, money. Make sure, if at all possible, to pay things a little bit ahead, because I don't see the government or any corporations giving us any reprieve from debt during this situation. This debt's just going to accumulate. So after 90 days of isolation, the next thing you know, you're 3 months behind on your mortgage. You're 3 months behind on your light bill if they haven't cut it off already. 3 months behind on water, gas, all that stuff, car insurance. Some of these companies may work with us and help us out if we are in a situation like that, but I do believe most will not. Well, just some thoughts from me today. I think this is turning into a very serious situation. I hope it's something that we recover from quickly, but from things that I've read, a lot of them, this could be something that sticks around for a little while, and this could have a major impact on the world as we know it on an economic level. It takes a long time to recover from economic disasters. So leave your comments below what you think about this and some things that maybe you're prepping that can help other people out. And don't forget about the 50,000 subscriber giveaway we got coming up, which is an NBC CBRN suit. As soon as I hit 50,000, I'll be giving that suit, mask, gloves, radiation detector, and boots in a bag to some lucky individual. So keep an eye on the channel. Thanks a lot for watching. And for now, Serious Survivor, out.